Hey guys, this is Dave, also known as RocktheGolem on YouTube, and you're watching Legends of Tabletop.
Hey everybody, welcome and hello to episode number 39 of the Legends of Tabletop podcast. This is our next Meet the Host segment. We have Dave, as you heard. Dave, I've known Dave now, I guess, for a couple of years. Known, we'll use air quotes. We've been playing Pathfinder together for quite a while.
Yes, we have.
So we want to get you on and give people a chance to get into your inner workings a little bit and see what makes you tick.
Fantastic. Sounds good to me.
All right, let's start. Before we get into your own stuff, you're on the Pathfinder actual play podcast, The Dragon Fisters.
That is correct.
You guys invited me on a couple of years ago, probably much to your regret.
No, not at all. You know, from personal experience, there have been situations we've gotten in that if you hadn't been there, at least your character or, the way your brain works, we wouldn't be in the positions that we're in right now. We'd be stuck in a lot of places. So, love having you in the group, I got to say. I really do.
Well, when we played the test scenario, we played Dungeon Delvers, man, it was like we had played forever. There was no real awkwardness or I don't know if I should say, we played like it was no big deal, which was fantastic because I literally had never met you guys before.
Well, and that's a big thing too, especially with the Dragon Fisters. We have the podcast, but we also have a game that we play face to face, actually physically at the table, and we've brought people in before, and we've come to realize that we're a very tough group to get into, and it's really because we've been doing this for so long and we've known each other for even longer than the amount of time we've been doing it for. But we have inside jokes and these one-word shenanigans that obviously mean a lot to us, but to someone who's just sat down at the table and has no clue what's going on, they are completely lost. So the fact that you were able to come into it and meld so well together, it just goes to show you that we flock to our own kind. But it has not always worked out that way in the past, I got to say.
Well, I cheated a little bit. I listened to you guys for a long time before, Jesse gave me the invite to come on. So,
right.
It's one of those things when you listen to a podcast, whether it's you guys or us or somebody else, you kind of feel like the people that you're listening to, because you hear the inside jokes, and if it's a show that has some table banter and stuff, kind of like what you guys do or what we do, I guess I could say, it gives people a little bit of an insight to kind of how people are,
right?
So it makes it a little bit easier.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, since we're talking about the Dragon Fisters, how long have you known Jesse? How long have you been part of that group?
Oh boy, Jesse's actually the first one of the group that I met. We used to do community theater together from one of the local towns. I actually started out doing it before I even met him with his now wife, back then just girlfriend. I had met her about a year or two before I met Jesse. But I think, if I remember correctly, I've known him since I've been in the 4th grade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I think we figured out that our friendship is now old enough to drink. It's been 21 plus years at this point.
Nice.
So I've known him for a very long time. The other members of the Dragon Fisters I've known for a little bit over the past decade. Pretty much it all started out as just people in the same working environment, just being close to each other and realizing that we had all these things in common. And then one day we all just got together and Jesse's like, hey, I kind of want to turn this into something. I want to have a name for us. I want to have, people listen to the stuff that we do, because we have a lot of fun. And some of the stuff we, say and do is pretty damn entertaining. So he wanted to, get a group together, and we all sat down, had over a couple drinks and some food, and the Dragon Fisters was born.
When he first said he wanted to record, were you like, I don't know if that's a good idea, or was the group as a whole like, no, definitely, we should totally do this?
If I remember correctly, it was kind of a mixed bag. We were all really excited about the idea of it, but actually going out and implementing it and making it happen, especially at the time, we're just talking about, the name and everything, trying to figure out how to go about doing it. We all kind of had a general idea of what to do, but would it work? We had no freaking clue. So it was one of those things where, yeah, we were all geared up and excited for it, but it was also kind of like, it's us against the world at this point. And even now, like, we're not as popular as, a bunch of people out there, and we've been going at this for quite some time. But at the same time, we all realize that we have life outside of the Dragon Fisters as well. So it has become something that we do, for fun, that we do like to share with people. It's not, our career or our, major source of income. So for something like that, it's not a bad thing that we're not, as high up as some of these other people that are like, oh yeah, I've dedicated my life to this, and like this is, the way I support my family and everything. You know what? They figured out how to do it, and good for them, but we're not at that point, and I don't know if we ever will be, but we are what we are, and I love being a part of it.
Sweet. That's awesome. It gave me a thought that just completely went away.
That'll probably come back to you. No worries.
And, I had a piece of scrap paper right here earlier, and I was like, I'm not going to need that. Shit.
Well, you have Notepad on the computer. We do have the technology.
That's true. That is true. So you guys have known each other forever. Have you guys always been gamers? When did you guys first, talk about playing D&D or whatever you cut your teeth on?
As far as gamers go, like being gamers, video games have always been a big part of my life. Like I had, the NES for Christmas one year, and my brother got, Sega Genesis for his birthday, and the consoles kept growing and things like that. But as far as actual tabletop gaming goes, I was always kind of interested in it, but never came across anyone else who was. And I think it was really difficult too, because there was kind of a stigma around tabletop gaming when I was growing up, because it was either, you had your Satan worshipers, or you had your, 40-year-old nerds who were still living in their mother's basement. There was always this negative connotation surrounding it. So it took a very long time to find a group of anyone who was interested in playing. But that actually happened my freshman year of college, which was back in 2003, 2004. A buddy of mine that I actually gone to high school with was big into D&D, but similar situation to me. He never was able to find anyone outside of the original group that he was with, which he had to leave when he went to college, that he could play with. And it just kind of came up that he met similar-minded people, and he got them involved. And knowing me from high school, asked if I wanted to be involved. And I said, yeah, I've always been interested, but never really had the opportunity. So he got a group of, I believe there were 6 of us together, and decided to DM a campaign, and it lasted all through freshman year of college. So that was really my first exposure to actually playing the game.
And what did you guys play?
We played D&D 3.5.
Mm-hmm.
He actually had a duffel bag filled with guidebooks. And I remember, he gave me, the player's handbook, and then he gave me, a dungeon master's guide and everything. And, piece by piece, he's giving me more guidebooks, and I'm, shooting ideas at him. And he's like, okay, now read this book, and, tell me what you think after that. And, God, I probably could have spent all of freshman year going through these guidebooks. D&D should have been my freaking major at some point. But, yeah. Yeah, what was the original question? I think I derailed myself there.
No, I asked what you guys had started playing.
Yeah, it was D&D 3.5, and we kept with that through the whole time. I don't even know if Pathfinder was out back then. If it was, we definitely hadn't heard of it.
Yeah, no, I don't think it came out until it had to be about 2008, 9, right? I mean, when 4th edition came out, that was the split.
Right. Yeah.
Pathfinder was 3.75, and then WotC's 4th edition.
Right, yeah, which 4th I never even touched.
I played a ton of it. I enjoy it.
I don't know. I think I got to be too much of a rule lawyer, and got to be too comfortable with 3.5, and just the options that I had. Because I mean, you could make some really game-breaking stuff with 3.5, and I didn't go out of my way to make that happen. But if I came across something that turned into what I thought was a good idea, you better believe I ran with it. I probably drove Jesse crazy with some of the stuff I came up with.
Now, did you get an opportunity to play all through college? Did that group stay together for any length of time, or was it kind of we got together for a while and everybody got busy, and that was kind of the end of it?
It started out with us staying together. I actually didn't stay at that school beyond freshman year. I started out as a computer engineer, and then realized I didn't want to do calculus for the rest of my life. So I went into graphic design there, and then I realized, oh crap, I'm out of money. So, and at that time I was too young to be an independent student and get, the financial aid I needed. So I ended up leaving the school after my freshman year and going and joining the workforce. But I always used to travel down. It was actually every week that we would play. I would travel down to my friend's apartment where he would host the game, and we would all play there. And that probably lasted a good about 2.5 years.
Mhm.
But then, other people went to other schools and people moved around and they went off campus to, other buildings and things like that. And work got in the way and the group just kind of fell apart eventually.
Yeah, that's what happens a lot of times,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So was there a big gap in between then and then, when you started playing with the Dragon Fisters?
Oh yes, absolutely. I probably met John and Kelly and Al and Gabby and all them in '05. So probably right around the time I stopped playing
Hmm.
with the group from college. But I had probably been working with them for about 2 more years after that. Might have been a little bit more. I really don't remember particularly, but it had been a while before we even realized that we all had an interest in playing. It actually was longer than that. It was probably about 3 or 4 years because we did have someone lined up to be our DM instead of Jesse. Jesse actually had the interest in playing as a player, and it just so happened that one of the guys we worked with had experience as a DM, or at least claimed to, despite the fact that he knew jack shit about paladins. Uh, but he offered to be our DM, and we all got together. We rolled up characters. We had a story ready to go. We even had characters who knew each other's characters and were like friends or enemies or everything. We had our own lore going on, and this guy had absolutely nothing for us for at least almost a year, if not two. So it finally got to the point where like Jesse basically threw his hands up in the air. He's like, "Screw it, I'll DM. Like I'll take a crack at it." And it just it snowballed from there. Like we've actually given Jesse a couple of opportunities to play as a character, but he himself has admitted to us that he is too obsessed with the power of being a DM, and he doesn't like letting it go. Like he likes to get the break every so often to, kind of, refresh his brain and take a little, relax a little bit. But ultimately he likes playing God. So we let him roll with it.
No, he does a good job at it.
Oh,
Can't
he
complain.
really does. I'll tell you though, he's actually traumatized us, and which full well.
Yeah.
It's gotten to the point where we won't even look at a common wooden door without checking for traps and like knocking on it, detecting magic, making sure there are no sigils or anything on it. Like, did you ever try just opening the door? No, that's too obvious. Like, there's got to be something with this door. Like, the door's probably not even there. We're staring right at it, and it's like it's got to be an illusion of some kind. No, it's a freaking door. But
Yeah.
that's how much he's traumatized us at this point.
Right. Is what do you enjoy the most about gaming? Is it the story aspect? Is the player interaction with each other? What really kind of gets you going as far as tabletop gaming?
Uh, Probably for me, it's definitely creating your own characters and seeing the interaction between players, but also taking it to the point where you are kind of allowing yourself to become that character. And obviously, we're not like, throwing capes on and like throwing ourselves on the ground or swishing imaginary swords through the air. Like, we do not take it that far, thank God. But like to actually come out of your own mentality and put yourself in the shoes of this person that you're creating and going out and meeting all these other people, whether they be the other characters from the players or the NPCs that the DM throws at you. And not just going through the story, but helping to shape the story yourself. One of the things I love about the way Jesse DMs is that he doesn't like to put us on rails.
Mhm.
He does, on occasion have to give us that friendly nudge in the correct direction because otherwise God knows what would happen to us. But for all intents and purposes, we have our starting point. We have an ultimate end goal in mind, but everything happens between A and Z is completely up to what we as characters do. And watching all of that unfold and realizing that while certain places are set in stone and what happens there could be, we don't know what's going to happen until we get there. And there are some aspects of the story that we might miss out on entirely if we end up going past it. So it's kind of like the choose your own adventure book without the option of putting a bookmark in and going back and seeing what it was.
Yeah.
So we were like writing our own story, and like that's another part of it that I really enjoy about playing.
Now, the alt campaign that we're in, you and myself and John and Al, it's complete theater of the mind. No maps, no minis, no anything. Cameras are off. We're just sitting and chatting. Do you prefer that over maps and minis, or do they both have a place at the table? How do you feel about that sort of experience?
I wouldn't really say I have a preference over one or the other. I'm comfortable with both of them. For me, I think the more involved encounters with there are like multiple levels or tiers where characters can stand, or if it's important to the story where it's like a big boss fight and something could end up happening, I think that would warrant having the minis and the map out on the table. But for your average encounter with whatever trash mob you come across, if the movie of the mind is perfectly satisfactory for me. Like a good example I can think of is at one point when we were playing the table campaign, we were traveling around on a ship, and we had two boats that that were fighting each other. And so Jesse had actually made like a 3-dimensional cardboard style multi-tiered boat. And that was really helpful because there were characters moving from boat to boat, and there were multiple levels on each thing. And at one point, one of the boats started to capsize, so he was able to have it tilted off to the side. And he's done other things where balconies have collapsed under our feet, and it's been a cardboard multi-tiered tower that all of a sudden he's like, oh look, and the balcony's gone. Like he just snaps it right off in front of us. So for things like that, having that visual aid I think does add to the experience. But for the more mundane encounters, not having a map or minis really doesn't have a negative impact on me.
Gotcha. And the interesting thing, for me coming into the campaign is because we do theater of the mind, you have to be that much more engaged in what's going on. I think it stimulates the role play. We've had Jesse, be like, hey, be right back. Not even noticed, and we're role playing and not even notice that he's not there anymore.
Oh, absolutely. Like I remember he's come back and been like, what happened? What's going on? I haven't been here. And like we've had to recap for him, which is I think is funny.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. Are there any games that you haven't played that you would like the opportunity to play?
As far as tabletop goes?
Tabletop, yeah.
One system that I had started to look into but never actually had the opportunity to play was actually the hero system. Like I think they actually used that they fashioned Champions Online after it. But it seemed really interesting, the idea of being able to basically like start out with a blank slate and pick and choose from anything you want, dumping a certain number of points into each ability. So you could have a dozen abilities that you're just kind of at, or you can have like one or two that you're incredibly amazing at. So something like that where you have total creativity over what your character is going to be, that I think would be something that's kind of cool. So I had looked into that system, but never have actually had the opportunity to play it.
Gotcha. Okay. Do you have a favorite in-game moment?
Let me think.
Probably 100, right?
You know what? Some of the stuff that's come up, especially with playing with the Dragon Fisters, it's been crazy. If someone always comes up with something that's absolutely insane, and I remember back during the first campaign we played, or rather the first chapter, because this has been a continuous campaign. It's just been multiple chapters. Our mantra was think outside the box, which in one case was easy to do because most of the players that we had at the table were new. So they could come up with these ideas like, oh, well, can I do this? Sure. Why not? As long as we can wrap a rule around it, why not? Sure. But at the same time, it was kind of a double-edged sword because they, were so concerned about the rules themselves that they really didn't want to throw out those original ideas. So I have two incidences that I can describe. One actually involves the Dragon Fisters, the other doesn't. It involves the first campaign I was in. Again, touching on that newbie mentality. So the Dragon Fisters one was actually back from chapter 1. I was playing Dorian Almax, who was again was also a cleric. We know that he's since been reborn and still is, the cleric and everything. But he was a higher level, had a little more power behind him, and he had some magical items on him as well. One of the very first encounters we had was actually with a bandit group that was attacking a caravan. And we were helping out, killing off the bandits and everything. And it came down to a standoff where one of the bandits had a dwarf held captive with a knife at his throat. And he had said, "Oh, if you back off, or I'll cut his throat. Like I swear." And what we didn't know at the time is that Jesse, was still being new to being a DM, had it so that this last bandit would have been, somehow either disarmed or incapacitated, and that we would be talking to him later, and he would have some hint or clue or pearl of wisdom to give us to help us move the campaign along.
Sure.
Well, what I did with Dorian is I had a cape that actually turned into a set of black wings and allowed him to fly. So from clear across the other side of the map, I activate those wings and I fly across. I reach out and I cast Slay Living on the guy, and and he just drops right there. Like, arm goes off from around the dwarf's neck. He hits the ground, and there's just this look of utter defeat on Jesse's face. And he told us about this afterwards. In his head, he's going, "Fuck, now what do I do?" Like, he didn't have the whole mentality of, well, shit happens, and what the way it's going to go is the way it's going to go. And that was actually kind of the catalyst that made him, develop that mentality. But yeah, I pretty much derailed the entire campaign for a week and a half because he needed to think of what was going to happen and how it was going to happen at that point.
Right.
So that was one of my favorites, simply because it just screwed with the DM so much. The other one I had was actually during the first campaign I had with my friends from college. I was playing a fighter who wielded a greatsword and had tessellated full plate armor. And we were fighting against a dragon at one point. I don't remember what size, but it was big enough that I was able to mount it. And in order to mount it, I actually had to climb it first. So what I actually ended up doing was I ran up to it so that I'm literally right next to this thing. And my turn ends and the next round begins. So I deactivate my armor so my climb speed is at its max, climb up onto this thing's back, and then reactivate my armor, take out my greatsword, and I'm just slashing at the back of this thing's neck. And my DM is just looking at me. He's like, "You are out of your freaking mind." And so, like, he tried to shake me off. He tried to, like, fly up into the ceiling to knock me off, and he could not get me off of this thing. And I'm literally just hacking away while the rest of the group is firing everything they have. And the damn thing drops. And he's looking at me. He's like, "The fuck were you thinking?" And I looked at him. I'm like, "It worked." And so, like, he loved to do like recaps and like talk to us and like give us bonus XP for like awesome role play and stuff. He's like, "How could I not give you bonus XP for that? Like, fuck, like, here, like, I think I leveled off of it or something like that." He's like, just take it, just go. Like,
nice.
So like that was pretty awesome, especially with it being my first campaign.
Mm-hmm. No, that's definitely. Is it hard to fit gaming into the schedule?
For me, yes. My schedule, unfortunately, is not consistent from week to week. My supervisor tries to make it that way. Typically, he likes to give me Mondays and Fridays off. But just due to the nature of it, because of me working in safety and security, and there are people who have, second jobs, they have families. Some of them are still in school taking classes. So pretty much the only arrangement I could make is that I would have my Friday evenings to myself, so that if we were able to sit down at the table and actually play D&D, that I wouldn't have to worry. I might have to wake up, at 5 a.m. the next morning, and we wrap up at like 1 o'clock, so I'll get maybe 3 hours of sleep. But it's the sacrifice I'm willing to make. But because of the fact that my schedule, it's not always the same days off, it's not always the same times. Sometimes I go from a closing shift to an opening shift, and I'm just exhausted. It's not easy to schedule around things. Like, you know, as well as I do with the alternate campaign, like there are times where we're like, all right, we'll meet at 10, and I'll have to text you guys and be like, oh, I can't make it until 10:30, which means I probably won't be on till like 10:45, 11 o'clock. So I try to do the best I can with it, but currently with the situation I'm in, yeah, it is kind of difficult.
Gotcha. Shit, the thought came back and then it just went out again. Oh, I got it. All right,
nice.
I got it.
Okay, go for it.
Is it true that if it wasn't for D&D, that you guys probably would never get together at all?
This is absolutely true. D&D has been pretty much the focus of all of us getting together. Jesse and now, especially with the twin girls, I think I've seen him physically, like face to face, maybe twice in the past year that they've been alive.
Right.
And as far as John and Kelly and, you know, Al and Gabby go, you know, we do have the luxury of meeting at the table, but again, like Jesse, we've maybe met up 4 or 5 times. 2 of them being the exact same 2 I saw Jesse at, and the other ones just being like, you know, we were going to have a night of tabletop gaming, but someone had to bang out. Well, the rest of us have the free time anyway, so screw it. Let's get together. We'll have some food. We'll play, you know, I don't know, like Monopoly or whatever board game we can come up, or just, you know, shoot the shit and play video games or whatever. So we do have, you know, D&D as the main focus, and it's kind of sad to say, but those other times, if it hadn't been for us originally planning D&D, it wouldn't have happened at all. So yeah, it really is. If we hadn't had the game schedule, that we would maybe see each other once or twice a year, and we only live about, well, I live maybe about a 20-minute drive from the rest of them. They all live maybe 5 to 10 minutes away from each other. So it's that bad. Yeah.
That sucks. But with that being said, you guys all came up to Providence when I was out there for Necronomicon, which was so awesome that everybody was able to come up, and we hung out for a couple hours and swapped stories and drank some beers and ate some food. It was such a good time.
Oh, it was amazing. And you guys introduced me to that, the Lovecraft, HP Lovecraft beer and everything. Like, that stuff was amazing. But no, it was awesome meeting you guys, like face to face, like actually being able to like sit down and interact with you guys. And again, like, I'm Italian, like, you put drinks and food in front of me, like everybody's my friend at that point. Like, but yeah, we thankfully, like, we had, you know, a long time in advance to know that you were coming up. So we were able to make arrangements for it. And I'll tell you, we've actually, as the Dragon Fisters and as, you know, people, you know, just, you know, who like the game, we have actually lost friends because of their inability to plan far ahead. We've had things planned out, you know, weeks or months in advance, and in the middle of us doing it, they'll, you know, message us and be like, hey, you want to go do this? Sorry, we can't, you know, we're already doing this, but if you're free, why don't you come join us? And, you know, some people, you know, thankfully have been like, yeah, sure, why not? We'll do that instead. And they'll come along. But a good number of people have either not wanted to make the trip out, or it wasn't something that they thought that they would enjoy. And because of it, we actually have, you know, had to part ways with a couple of people because they just haven't been willing to, you know, realize that this is the way we have to plan things out. It sucks, but, you know, such is life.
Yeah, well, I'm the same way, and especially with the podcast and stuff now. I got printable calendars. I'm erasing shit, scratching stuff, adding different things. I would never remember anything if it wasn't for that.
Oh God, I tried doing the Google Calendar thing on my phone at one point, and I fell off with that really quickly. So I thought about getting, like, you know, a dry erase calendar or something like that. And then I realized, well, I'd have to actually take the time to, like, write that all out and erase all of it every month. And I'm like, that's too much time. So I just kind of fly at the seat of my pants at this point.
Oh man, I couldn't do it. I live and die by that calendar. And we do the Google thing too. You know, we do all of our scheduling, and, you know, we put our personal things up there and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, my girlfriend is much better at that than I am. Like, she, like, will put stuff in her phone and remind me about stuff. And she's like, hey, are you ready to do that thing on Friday? What thing on Friday? Like, is it, what day is it? Like, what's going on? Like it's weird too. Like, I know what I'm working tomorrow, or like what time I'm going in, what time I'm leaving. If you asked me what day of the week tomorrow was, I have no freaking clue.
Yeah, I mean, me neither.
Yeah, it's gotten to be that bad.
It's like, what's on TV tonight? Oh, okay, it's Wednesday.
Oh, that's another thing that's ruined me is DVRing. Like there's only really three shows I watch anymore: Walking Dead, Better Call Saul, and Doctor Who. Uh,
Mhm.
all three are set up on my DVR right now, so I, I couldn't tell you if it was on tonight, if it's on yesterday, how many are on my DVR. But anytime I have the opportunity to, I'm able to flip it on and be like, oh shit, look, I'm like 3 episodes behind. Like let's play some catch up here.
Yeah.
So yeah, technology has ruined me.
I looked at the TV the other because I don't actually get to sit and watch TV all that much anymore.
Yeah.
And we have all stuff on the DVR as well. I sat down. I had about 40 hours worth of TV to watch. I was like, what the fuck?
Wow. And of
Well,
course, that'll take you like 5 months to catch up on.
yeah, because I haven't watched any of the Vikings.
Mhm.
I'm a couple episodes behind on Survivor. Yeah, I still watch Survivor.
Eh.
Shit, that Black Sails and
Mhm.
Modern Family and like all those shows, and those shows are all going into summer hiatus. Walking Dead's over, but all the
Oh,
summer stuff's coming on. Turn is coming on.
yeah.
Ink Master should be coming on soon. I think Deadliest Catch is on now.
Nice. Very nice.
Crazy, and that it's coming into the end of the hockey season's over now. Playoffs start tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So fly. So if I am watching TV, I'm normally watching a Flyers game.
Oh, there you go.
So tomorrow night, first round.
Well, good luck to him.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. So in addition to all this tabletop stuff, you also do live playthroughs. You have your own YouTube channel, Rock the Golem.
That's correct.
How did you get involved in doing that?
Although the let's playing and everything kind of happened after the fact when my channel first began. The channel was initially geared toward doing voice acting, mostly fan dubs of anime song covers. Again, typically from anime or Disney or more cartoony type stuff that could appeal to a wider audience. But it was also kind of like a place for me to set up shop so that I could go out to other people that have projects doing Sims Machinima or Halo Machinima, or if they have their own original series, or if they wanted to do fan dubbing or song covers, that I would be able to post some of my own stuff and go out to them and be like, hey, this is who I am, this is what I can do, I'd like to be a part of it. Unfortunately, that kind of dropped off with the groups that I were with, having school and work and everything, and me having to work. Again, just like with tabletop, things get in the way. So I at one point didn't really have the energy to keep traipsing after these people. So what I ended up doing is I started to focus voice acting more on a professional level, like actually looking for paying work, and my channel became a lesser version of that was more geared toward doing video game let's plays, which allowed me to at least be at the computer and exercise my voice a little bit and talk to people and kind of connect with them that way. And the crazy thing is that my audience keeps telling me that they want me to do more voice acting, more fan dubs, more song covers, but the majority of the subscribers that I've gotten seems to have been geared from the let's playing. So it's a strange dynamic.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I started out doing enough recording that I could actually upload one episode every day, like to the point where I could actually alternate episodes and do different games at once. But again, work got in the way. That all had to kind of get cut back on. And then the professional voice acting started to take off a little more. So I had to focus on that and kind of, shift away from the whole let's playing thing. So I had actually dropped that down to, I think, 3 days a week. And then like Sunday was going to be geared toward, the random day. Like it could be for whatever, just so, it could be a voice acting thing. It could be a vlog, which I don't believe I've ever actually done one. But yeah, the let's playing unfortunately has kind of dropped off, and I would like to get back into it. Which now that I'm kind of between voice acting jobs, it might be a possibility for me to start, like compiling a bunch of those again. But I do have other amateur work that that I'm not being paid for, but I've been kind of falling behind on that, so I have to play catch up with that first.
When you were doing your let's plays, how did you decide which games to play? Did you go out and pick up whatever was new, whatever the new game is, or just like, hey, I've got this sitting on the shelf and I'll pop it in and play for a little while?
It was kind of a mixed bag. some games I tried to jump on as soon as I possibly could. There are a bunch of, really popular Let's Players out there like Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, the Game Grumps. Like those are the three that I watch primarily. And I kind of, watched them and see what they got into. And funny enough, I actually tried to avoid the things that they were doing, because I felt like if I was doing the exact same thing as them, that people would watch their stuff, not be interested in what I was doing, because they were already doing it, and why bother watching it twice?
Mm-hmm.
So when people were playing, The Evil Within, I was playing Life is Strange. When people were jumping on, what was it, like Far Cry 4 or Grand Theft Auto 5, I was playing Dragon Ball Xenoverse. Like I was trying to mix it up and keep it as original as I possibly could, while keeping it like as new and as fresh as I could as well. To that end, though, there were some games that I wanted to play that they did play, that I either waited until they were done with, or I felt like I could make it different enough that people would enjoy it. But basically, like, it's just kind of like, what my personal feel for things were and what I felt other people would enjoy as well. I've actually ended Let's Play series very early because I've noticed that people just don't care at all.
Yeah. Yeah, never a good thing.
No, like, and the thing is, like, I have no idea how it is people come to watch certain Let's Plays on my channel, and like why others drop off short. Like the two extremes I can think of, one that I ended up ending very quickly, it was actually Shadow of Mordor. Which, I looked at the reviews, like it got really positive reviews. It seemed to be a fun game. People were comparing it to, Batman Arkham Asylum and all those, like that series. It seemed like a really interesting game. So I think I got maybe a dozen episodes in before I ended it. And that was because by the time I had gotten to the double digits, I don't think I was even in double digits from views.
Right.
But then you have Dragon Ball Xenoverse that I, jumped on, as soon as it came out, and those episodes have like tens of thousands of views each. Like I don't know what it is that makes a successful Let's Play and what doesn't. Really, the only thing I can think of is like it's Dragon Ball. It's really popular. Everybody loves it. And the game was just like the next level of Dragon Ball gaming that everyone seemed to have enjoyed.
Right.
But yeah, ultimately, if there is a formula to success for YouTube, I haven't figured it out yet.
Well, you would think that at some point the game that's being played is somewhat superfluous. Like if they enjoy your humor, or if they enjoy your, the modulation of your voice or whatever it is, that they would come and listen and watch whatever the game is, because it almost doesn't matter. You're just at that point almost kind of hanging out with a friend.
Right.
But
Well, and to that end, like I think a lot of that does have to do, like you said, with the game that's being played as well. Like Shadow of Mordor was a lot of running around. There wasn't really a whole lot of dialogue outside of cutscenes. So it was anything I talked about was really my personal observations, or just what was kind of on my mind at the time. But there would be, obviously gaps where there was no commentary at all because of it. But then you looked at like Xenoverse or Life is Strange, where basically the entire game is one big long cinematic. So there's always something to comment on, to touch on, to react to. I think it would be a lot easier doing a Let's Play channel if you had a partner with you, like someone that you can banter back and forth with.
right.
I don't know. Have you watched the Game Grumps before, or?
I haven't, no.
I do recommend them. And I'll be honest, like maybe 20% of their commentary is actually about the game. They're telling stories, they're making jokes, they're saying just random stuff. One of them is like completely over the top with his reactions, and the other guy's just kind of like, wow, that's really weird that you just said that, but it's hysterical anyway. But they have such a good dynamic, back and forth, that it gets to the point where you don't even really have to watch the gameplay to enjoy them. And I think that's a really hard thing to do when you're trying to fly solo doing it. But I try to do the best that I can.
Yeah. And when you would record, would you just like sit and play for 3 or 4 hours and just record the whole thing and then snip it up and release it in little segments, or?
Yep. My method pretty much was actually to have a timer out on my cell phone. And unless there was some big thing where I'm like, okay, guys, I got to redo this and I'll do it off camera, or, something happened that I had to get away from my computer, I would stop the timer and then pick it back up when I continued. But yeah, what I would do is I would, do my intro, try to play for about 10 or 15 minutes, watching the timer, and then I'd stop the timer, do my, outro. And then, what I would do typically is I would at least end that recording and then start up a new one so that I didn't have one long, like 4-hour video.
Yeah.
I unfortunately did try doing that once and it didn't have good results. I ended up losing 3 episodes of a Let's Play because of me attempting to do that. So I learned that lesson, and a lot of the Let's Plays have been, lesson learning events for me. I still haven't completely gotten a set formula worked out. Even now, I'm still trying to revamp my channel, like coming up with new banners, new intros, new outros, things like that. Trying to get a feel still for what it is that I'm trying to do. But yeah, what I would do is I would personally sit down for about 3 or 4 hours and just play nonstop. But I would release them in like 10 to 15-minute clips.
Gotcha. Okay. And you were talking earlier about, the channel originally started with your, want to get into voice acting and all.
Mm-hmm.
And for people who are listening to this later, they can't see the video now. You're sitting in a microphone that may be as big as your head.
Which is saying a lot because I got a pretty big noggin.
I'm assuming that's a professional mic.
Yes and no. This will give you, for the most part, a professional quality to at least get yourself out there. But if you talk to anyone in the industry, if they were to look at this right now, they would probably laugh at me and be like, screw you, kid, get the hell out of here. The reason being is because a couple of different things. First of all, I record in my bedroom. The room is not sound treated at all, except for like my bed, the clothes I have on the floor, things like that. Like there is no like acoustic foam or anything like that. Nothing to keep the sound from bouncing off the walls. This little apparatus thing that I have around the microphone is called a Chaotica eyeball. My girlfriend actually got this for me for, I believe it was my birthday or Christmas or our anniversary. I don't remember, but she got it for me regardless. Couple of things that I had to deal with this is that the eyeball initially wasn't big enough to fit on this microphone, which is the standard USB microphone, the Blue Yeti.
Okay.
Which is a condenser microphone that does give professional quality sound, but really only if you're in a perfectly treated room. The eyeball kind of takes the place of the acoustic foam, but not really. It's not a perfect setup. There is still some editing that I have to do myself that I typically wouldn't have to do if I was in an actual professional sound booth. But on top of it, they do look for an actual like XLR hookup microphone, like a condenser microphone, to do professional recordings. An actual, like a professional studio would never use a USB microphone as far as my research has shown. But for someone like me who is still a professional, but for the most part considered, new to the industry, this is satisfactory of enough of a setup to get me to the point where I can produce a product and actually be paid for the work that I'm doing.
Cool. And meanwhile, I sit here with my little $30 Logitech headphones.
Oh, dude, everyone's got to start out somewhere. I'll tell you, one of the first projects I auditioned for, which was, it's an unpaid amateur project. I had a Logitech headset microphone that I recorded on, and I went back maybe a couple of years, a couple of years after, and re-listened to it, and it sounded like I was coming through on like old time radio. Like it was, I had no basis of comparison for how horrible like this microphone actually sounded. And this mic here is actually, if you include the headset, the third microphone I've gone through trying to, eventually, crawl my way slowly up to that level of being like, okay, I finally have my professional setup now. So this is probably the last stop for me as far as USB microphones go. And once I have enough, I guess you could say, disposable income, the next step will be to actually get like that XLR soundboard set up and to actually have everything done, as professionally as possible.
Gotcha. And the takeaway from this for me is that it probably sounds like the podcast is coming through an old time radio.
Surprisingly, it doesn't sound that bad. And I don't know if that's your sound card or if like, Google Hangouts has, something, good coming through with it or what it is. But no, it doesn't sound nearly as bad. And I wish I had the clip here, like ready to play for you. But no, it was absolutely terrible. And like, you're using, like, how old is that headset, would you say?
Shit. I don't know. I probably picked it up probably for this. So probably about a year ago.
Yeah, the headset I was using was at least 4 or 5 plus years old. Right. So, I mean, how technology advances, sound quality is always improving. I wouldn't doubt it if like in the next 10 years, we didn't see a headset microphone that probably had the same sound quality as this. But back then, it was just terrible. Like you don't sound bad at all.
Well, that's good. I like that. Yeah. How did you first get into the voice acting? Like, what was the impetus behind like, hey, I should like do this thing and maybe I can make some money at it?
Well, one of the first things I got into as a kid, like, I did sports, like I played, baseball, soccer, basketball. But theater was a big part of my life as well. It started out when I was in the first grade, just, doing school theater. And then, like I told you, like I got in fourth grade, I got into community theater and met Jesse and his wife, then girlfriend. It actually got to the point where I was probably involved in, 3 to 4 shows every year. And then it went from everything from like serious dramas and Shakespeare to like musical theater. So I loved being up on the stage. Like it was a great time. It was a way for me to pass the time, hang out with my friends. And I learned a lot from it too, like not like just, how to be on the stage, but also about like diction and projecting your voice. And the diction thing was kind of a big thing, which people, they hear me and they don't realize that I live just outside of Boston because I don't have the Bostonian accent.
Right.
I pronounce all of my R's and everything. But once I got to college and things started to get in the way, I didn't have time to be up on the stage anymore. So when I finished my associate's degree at one point and I, rejoined the workforce, I was looking for some way to kind of reconnect with the whole being on stage thing. But by that point, the director I had used to working under had retired. So I didn't really want to break into working under a new director. And I didn't really feel like I had the time to go out and audition and, dedicate time to rehearsals and, building sets and things. So I decided that I wanted to try my hand at voice acting because to me, it was basically acting without having people being able to look directly at you. And there's still a lot of physical acting involved with it. Like if you've ever seen Mark Hamill when he voice acts for the Joker, he is very animated. Like he never sits down. Like his body's always moving. His hands are animated. It's a very physical activity for him. And I try to do stuff like that, similar to it when I voice act as well. But the funny thing is it actually almost didn't happen for me. I got on to YouTube, started to audition for a couple different things, and again, maybe it had to do with my microphone, maybe it had to do with just signing up with people who weren't dedicated to the projects. But I tried for a few months to get involved with just anything I could find, and nobody picked me up. Nobody was like, no, it's we'll bring you in. They were all like, it's okay, we found someone else. So I actually gave up on it at one point. I basically quit, said it's not worth it. I'll find something else to do. And maybe about 6 months went by and I tried it again, sent out a couple of more auditions, and a few weeks went by and I started to get frustrated again. But then someone finally messaged me, and it was kind of weird because I had been throwing out all these auditions and sending out all these emails. And the person who messaged me was someone I had never heard of and never contacted before. And she basically said, hey, I heard your audition for this person's project. I'm sorry you didn't get the part, but I have a project in mind that I think you would be perfect for. Like, this is the character I want you to play. This is what the story is about. What do you think? So I jumped on board with her. tried to, help her out with the project. And the funny thing is I was probably involved in maybe a half a dozen projects with this person, but none of them ever came to fruition. But it's ironic though, because if she hadn't messaged me and been like, "Hey, I want you to be involved with this," I think I would have given up on it again. Like that really kind of like reignited the spark that I had for it, and I started sending out more auditions again, and I started actually using YouTube as a place to host my auditions and post it for people to see what I can do. And eventually I finally sat down and recorded out a demo reel that people could actually go and listen to, so that when I went to audition, not only could I send the audition, but I could send that as well and be like, "Oh, here's what I can do in addition to everything else." And they would hear that and be like, "Whoa, like this guy's amazing." And it actually grew to the point where, similar to when this girl messaged me, I didn't have to send out auditions anymore. I had enough content out there at one point that people were coming to me, to the point where now I was the one turning them away.
Right. Right.
So it was actually kind of a cool thing. But yeah, theater was really the origin of what got me involved in the voice acting, and it almost didn't happen if it hadn't been for that one email that I got.
It's crazy. Life tends to work that way.
Yeah,
when you least expect something, that something pops here or there, and it takes you in a certain direction.
Right.
Well, I mean, you definitely have the voice for it. I mean, just wonderful modulation. Like you said, you don't have that accent that John has.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, it's fantastic. And I saw today that you tweeted out you just finished is it your first professional work, the novel?
It's not the first professional work that I've worked on. It is the first one to actually be fully published.
Nice.
I actually do have a website that I made off of carbonmade.com. It's typically a free site, but I did sign up for a membership because it allows me to post more projects than the free membership would allow me to. And I have been involved in enough that it did warrant the spending of that membership money. But yeah, the first project that I worked on that has been published is an audiobook. Like you said, I did post a video on it. It's actually called Blade of the Destroyer, The Last Bucellari, Book 1. It was written by Andy Peliquin. It's a kind of a dark and gritty style story novel, fantasy adventure, medieval style feel to it. But yeah, I've been working on this audiobook with Andy for we probably started talking about it right before Christmas. But because of getting sick and because of life issues and things like that, I didn't actually start working on it until the tail end of February to the beginning of March. So it's been about like a month and a half to 2 months worth of work, but it's been a lot of work being done at one time, to the point where like I'll have a day off from work and literally from sunrise to sunset I'll do nothing but working on getting this done. But it is finally out. It's up for sale. It is on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon. Personally, if you don't have an Audible account, I do recommend going through them for 2 reasons. One, the first book you get, having a new Audible account, I believe you actually can get your first book for free. And this book is a little expensive simply because of the length of it. It's $25, but it is a 14.5-hour long book.
Oof.
Yeah. So again, if it's the new membership type thing, I recommend grabbing that as your first one because it is a little on the expensive side. But also the site I go through, which is acx.com, which is Amazon's site for narrators, for authors, and for publishers to go and to find each other and collaborate on these projects. They have what's known as the Headhunter program, where if the book you've worked on has been selected as a new account's first book, they do provide you with a stipend. So that does go toward me and helping me, fund this project, all these projects that I'm working on. So that's why I do recommend Audible. You can go through iTunes, you can go through Amazon, and Amazon I think does lead you to Audible as well. I'm not entirely sure on that. But yeah, so it is the first book that I've worked on. I do have another one that I'm waiting to work on right now because unfortunately the author is going through a couple different surgeries right now and is not able to really speak to me. In the meantime, though, I am planning on going out and auditioning for other projects and seeing what comes up. But As far as professional projects go, I've probably worked on over a dozen of them at this point.
Nice, very cool.
Yeah.
How hard is it to get that work? Do you still have people contact you out of the blue, or are you still kind of like putting your stuff out there trying to promote it? Or
as far as professional paid work goes, it's very rare that I've discovered for people to come to me, basically being like, "Hey, I have this project and I want to pay you for it." Paying projects, really, the voice actors go to the directors. I have a couple different websites that I look on that I can search for that I've found paid work through. But directors that are doing unpaid work still come to me all the time. So, and again, it's a similar situation where I have had to turn them away. And any of the amateur projects that I've decided to be a part of, I've told them flat out, listen, I do want to work on your project, but I also have, contracts with paid work that I have to do. And unfortunately, if you need me to do something and they need me to do something, I have to take preference on that one.
Right,
and for the most part, the directors have all been very understanding about that. But I learned a very important lesson when I first signed up for this voice acting work. I had actually signed up for this book and the other one I mentioned with the other author at the exact same time, and not realizing how I knew there would be a lot of work involved, but I didn't realize how difficult it would be to find the time to get that work done. Because unfortunately, for 1 hour worth of audiobook, it takes between 6 to 8 hours of actual work to produce that 1 hour.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So, people hear, voice actors, they make on average, $250 an hour. Well, they do, but they make $250 per finished hour.
Mm-hmm.
They still have to work 8 hours to make that finished hour happen.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people don't realize.
Right.
Still a good amount of money, but a lot of work has to go into it. And because of that, I had to, basically focus on one book entirely before I could get onto another one. And even this book that just came out, there were so many voices involved and so much, changing in pitch and modulation of my voice that at one point, right toward the end, I actually lost my voice for a few days.
Oh, no.
Yep. There was one character that unfortunately was like very guttural and very deep, and doing the both of those at the same time, it just completely wrecked my throat, and like I wasn't able to talk for almost 2 days. So
do you have any special things that you do when you are recording, like tea with honey? Do you have like a special spray or anything like that to kind of try to keep your voice up to snuff?
well, I do warm up a little bit beforehand. Nothing really special, just kind of like, talking out loud. I'll actually look at whatever lines I'm working on and I'll do some practice takes beforehand, like nothing's recorded, just enough to get my voice, working and getting it warmed up. Water is constantly by my side. If I start to feel like my throat is getting a little, raw, or if it's starting to go a little bit, I do have 2 types of tea that my girlfriend actually got for me when I first started to lose my voice, both of which are specific to helping, keep, if, your voice and your throat in good health. But I have also done, lemon and honey in like tea or in just hot water to try to help like soothe everything. No sprays. I also, have like a bag of vitamin C Halls just to, make sure, one, I stay healthy, but also just to make sure my throat stays good as well. I don't do like anything that could like make me phlegmy. No, like no yogurt, no milk.
Yeah.
And there was something else that I don't do, but I can't remember what it was now. Like sports drinks like Powerade and Gatorade. While they're good for hydration and like electrolytes and everything, but I don't know if it's just a personal thing or if it happens to everybody, but I feel like if you have too much of it, it actually kind of like starts to irritate your throat a little bit. So I actually stay away from sports drinks when I actually like sitting down at the microphone.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What's the ungeekiest thing about you?
The ungeekiest thing.
Mm-hmm. Or is there?
I like to think of myself as a self-proclaimed geek / nerd. Like big into science, big into art. Like I know a lot of like trivia, like pop culture stuff. Some people like to call it useless knowledge. I like to call it knowledge that doesn't get used often. Um, but I'd say probably the ungeekiest thing about me is that I do actually have a fair amount of athletic ability. Um, my freshman year of high school, actually, I set the school's leg lifting record at 1,005 pounds.
Holy cow.
Yeah. It actually got to the point where we didn't have enough weights to put on the racks. We actually had the heaviest weights on there and we had filled the rack. So we got one of the smaller freshmen, weighed him in, and actually sat him on the plate and had him be part of the racking. Yeah, so like I've always been like a big stocky like powerhouse kind of guy. The other members of the Dragon Fisters refer to me as like as the ogre.
Yeah.
We actually were going through for a hike in the woods, and there was like a little brook that we needed to cross, and it was maybe only like 5 or 6 feet wide, but still wide enough. And they're all trying to think of like if there's a rock or something that they could like skip over, if there's like a smaller place to go. In the meantime, I walk over and I'm literally pushing a tree over into the water.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's probably the my ogre-ishness would probably be the least geeky part about me, which I've managed to somehow describe in a geeky manner. So there you go. Like
Mongo only pawn in Game of Life.
John, not while I'm drinking. Oh God.
It's funny. Well, that's all I have as far as prepared questions. We can we've been doing this for over an hour here. We could roll into our final 5 questions.
Yeah, sure. If that's the way you want to go with it, let's do it up.
All right, we got I'm here by myself. It's you and me. 5 geeky questions. We'll throw them out to you.
All right.
So the first one is Star Trek or Star Wars?
Oh boy, that is a hard question, but I'm gonna actually have to go Star Trek. Like I'm a big fan of the both of them, but I grew up with Next Gen and then I went right into Voyager. Star Trek has always been like almost like an everyday portion of my life. Like Star Wars is amazing. Like there's no doubt about it. I own FX lightsabers. I don't even own anything from Star Trek, but I do own stuff from Star Wars. But as far as personal preference goes, I've got to go with Star Trek.
Now, were you a fan of the new movies that came out for Star Trek? And they kind of got bashed a little bit. Lens flare, blah blah blah, whatever.
The lens flare definitely was an eyesore for me. Like I understand what they were trying to do, but why they did it, I don't know. Like I don't know if they were just trying to stylize it or what it was. I did enjoy them. I do have my issues with the stories a little bit, especially with Into Darkness with Spock now doing the Khan yell.
Yeah.
Like that struck a immensely sour note with me, and I understand again why they threw that in there. They're trying to allude back to the original scene between Kirk and Khan, and they wanted to pay homage to that scene. But I think of that along the same lines of are you a Queen fan at all?
The band Queen?
Yes.
Meh.
Okay. Well, for those of you out there who are watching this that are fans of Queen, Freddie Mercury to me was one of the most amazing singers known to man. And now they have this new kid in Queen, and the kid does a good job, but he will never be Freddie Mercury. So in a similar fashion, like they do a good job in what it is that they're doing, but they will never be that original cast.
Sure.
So it is what it is. I do enjoy them. Scotty's actually probably my favorite character in the whole thing.
Yeah.
He does a fantastic job. Yeah, I do enjoy them, but they are not by any means the originals.
Okay, well, that's fair. Tabletop or video games?
If you looked at the amount of time I put in each one, you'd probably think video games. And yeah, actually, that's probably the way I would go. Unfortunately, it's getting to the point, and I where technology is getting to that point, to the level where we don't have to even need the tabletop anymore. We have virtual tabletops that we can have on the computer. VR headsets are now becoming a huge thing. Like, it's going to get to the point where, you sitting in your chair right there, me sitting in mine, we strap on our visors, and now all of a sudden you're over there at the table and Jesse's right there, and we have our virtual physical tabletop now right in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting to the point where technology is just vastly outweighing the actual tabletop portion of it. And I really do hope it kind of goes in that direction. If it does, I by no means want to see tabletop games disappear. I would love to see games that actually pay homage back to those things. But in the same respect, it's also kind of like comparing a Kindle to a book from the library, having the actual feel of it, and like, being able to smell, the pages and things like that. There's nothing like the real thing. But unfortunately, I am, a product of technology and the digital era. So I do have to go with the video games.
Okay. DC or Marvel?
Marvel. I like what DC has done with the reboot and everything. I like the fact that the characters are a little grittier now, but I feel like they're a few decades behind the ball. Marvel has been doing this for a long time. The characters in Marvel have always been more relatable, despite the fact that they're these incredible, superpowered, superhuman beings that can do these amazing things. But DC to me has always been about the separation between humans and the superheroes, where Marvel has them all like in the thick of things. Like, they all came from relatively humble beginnings. DC, you've got your rich boys, buying their equipment, or they're somehow characters who are magically imbued, or they're aliens or whatever. It's all their natural abilities that kind of separate them from the humans and make them into almost gods. Marvel is humans having the potential to be these people. And yeah, you do have your rich boys with their power suits and everything, but it's not strictly focused on that. And it actually leads you to the idea of making people think, could this be a possibility? And a lot of people have said, yeah, it is. You don't get that sensation with DC.
Right. And a lot of people have said that when we've asked this question, that the Marvel characters are infinitely more relatable than anything in DC.
Absolutely.
So, okay. I was never a big comic book reader, a little bit, of course, Batman. I collected DC when, they killed Superman. I got sucked into that whole thing.
Right. Yep.
But that led me into Dark Horse and Star Wars, and, they were doing all those comic series. And
yep. Yeah, like as far as comic books go, like I was never that big into comics. I did own sporadically here and there. Like I had the Death of Superman. I had the 4 different Supermen. I had like the rebirth of him and everything. I had a bunch of old X-Men ones, especially during the Onslaught era. So I did have some comic books here and there, but I was by no means an avid collector. The majority of my knowledge came from like cartoons, whether they be the 90s ones or even like the older ones. But I have to attribute the majority of my comic book knowledge actually to the internet.
Gotcha.
Because for me, it was, I got a little taste here and there of these characters, be it through the couple of comics or the cartoons or whatever. And it was enough to pique my interest to have me go on the computer and like search them out and read up on their lore. And that's the majority of like how I learned about these different worlds.
Cool. Sci-fi or fantasy?
Despite the answer about the video games, I would go fantasy in a heartbeat.
Okay.
Sci-fi, like it's an interesting concept, and I do feel like that's the way the world itself is going. And I think for that reason is the reason why I would pick fantasy, because everyone's going sci-fi anyway. Like I want to have that exposure to something that's completely different, and the idea of it being, a little more magical, as opposed to having to rely on like science or devices to do certain things for you. Like almost like being imbued with natural abilities and talent and magic. Like that appeals to me a lot more than like picking this thing up and having it do it for you.
Right. Now, I wonder, as you're giving me this answer, between sci-fi and fantasy, do you think that fantasy is more of the male purview? Because we have a lot of guys on the show, and a lot of times fantasy is the answer. Do you think there's a breakdown there?
Like between like men and women, like what they would pick, or just
Yeah.
men and fantasy in general.
Men and fantasy in general, between men and women. It was just a passing thought. I figured I'd throw it out there.
Um, you know what? I'm not really sure. Like, I think it would be a lot of personal preference, and especially the crowd that Legends of Tabletop would attract. I think would be geared more toward fantasy to begin with. But I think there is a certain appeal, like I had mentioned before, behind the idea of being something more than you are, but actually having it be you, having it be a part of you, as opposed to like having to depend on something else. Like it's kind of the conversation, Superman versus Batman. Superman, he does the things that he does because that's who he is. Like Clark Kent is the costume that he puts on. At the end of the day, he is Superman, he is Kal-El. But then you have Batman, who, despite the fact that he does have certain natural abilities, he does have to rely on technology to do the things that he does. And while a lot of people say they would like to be Batman over Superman, I feel like, as far as like sci-fi versus fantasy goes, I would think there's more appeal behind the idea of having the natural ability yourself, which is why I know a lot of people would pick Batman, because it goes back to that idea of what I talked about in Marvel, where people can become these things. Human beings could become Batman. There is no way for them to become Superman, because Superman is a Kryptonian. He's an alien. It just can't be done. So I think there is that connection with the idea of it being your own, an extension of yourself, being a part of you, that fantasy would win out over sci-fi.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. And the last question is, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
I'm going to cheat on this a little bit. It's going to be a toss up between the two. And the funny part is that, John Bessie already knows both answers to these. The first one would actually be the power of flight. Like people are like, oh, why wouldn't you want to teleport, or why wouldn't you want to turn invisible? I want to fly through the fucking air. Like I want to be able to see everything go past me. Like, yeah, that's great that you can go from point A to point B in like a heartbeat, but I want to be able to like take in everything around me and see everything, like feel the wind go whipping past me, and like, have people be able to see me and be like, hey, look what I can do and you can't. Fuck you. Yeah, so like the first one I throw out often is the power of flight. The joke answer that I would give to that is the ability to create and manipulate fire. And the reason for this is because one of the first MMOs I got into was City of Heroes. It was actually John Bessie who got me into it. And we had a duo that we would play as. He was, an electric user, because that's the power that he always claimed that he wanted, in addition to teleportation. And fire was the power I always claimed I wanted. And it got to his character would be, the rough and tumble guy that could take all the hits. Excuse me. And my character was the one that would throw fire out and dish out all the damage. And anytime he said something to like make me feel like I was getting dumber, or like just say something to like pain me, I would always threaten to chuck a fireball at the back of his head. So the joke with that is that I would like to be able to like create and manipulate my own fire.
Nice. All for you, John.
Exactly. Every superpower has been revolved around John, and even the Dragon Fisters, like kind of an extension of that question. We were all kind of big into Avatar: The Last Airbender.
The cartoon was phenomenal.
Oh, I absolutely loved it. Like I liked Korra as well. It wasn't to me as good, but The Last Airbender was absolutely incredible. I loved that show. But the four of us all sat down, me, Jesse, John, and Kelly, and we're like, what benders would we be if we could be? And we went around the table, and it was very easily to answer for John and Jesse. Like Jesse, we figured would be a water bender, because like he was kind of like shifty and likes to like redirect people. I don't mean shifty in a bad way. Like that came, oh, Jesse, I'm sorry, that came out horribly wrong. But like, especially being a DM, like he loves like misdirection and things like that. And that's one of the things about water bending is, kind of like redirecting people's things at them. We said John would be an airbender, because John likes to, dodge, duck, and avoid, and, get that one shot in that, never wasting anything, but he's really fast and agile, and, jumps around and everything. And the joke was that I was going to be the firebender of the group. But we actually flipped that and made Kelly the firebender. One, because she is a feisty redhead.
Yeah.
But also two, you look at me like me, leg pressing 1,000 pounds and pushing down trees. Like, I'm a friggin' earthbender. Like, there's no doubt about it.
Right.
So yeah, like we joked around about that, but it was a funny conversation.
That's cool. Yeah, I used to tell people if they weren't watching it that at the time it was probably one of the best shows on television. It didn't matter that it was a cartoon. It was wonderfully written. It was funny where it needed to be. It was poignant where it needed to be. It was just I have the box set somewhere. It's on one of these shelves in here. It's just amazing.
Well, and the other part I loved about it too is that it almost feels like the show grew up with its audience. Like the first series was kind of like lighthearted and funny and everything, but by the time you got to the final season, it got pretty dark. Like, and I liked the fact that that's the way it went. So I was really happy to see that as well. Like the fact that this, like you said, it was a cartoon. It was originally intended for kids. It was on Nickelodeon, for Christ's sake. But they did not, they were not afraid to, go to that darker level of it and like get into more serious topics. Like we have, child abuse and like, brother and sister fighting each other. And like, it was fantastic. Absolutely
they
love
didn't
that
dumb
show.
it down.
Not at all.
Yeah, really good. All right. If you want to pimp away there, I'll give us all your deets so people can go and check you out online.
All right. If you guys feel like checking me out online, my YouTube page, if you want to, YouTube channel rather, if you want to go, do a search for RocktheGolem, spelled GOLEM, not GOLLUM. That's the character from Lord of the Rings, not the big rock monster. I use that username for pretty much every website I use. I have DeviantArt, Twitter, Facebook. Trying to think of what else I have. I have a bunch of them. Pretty much if you just do a general Google search for Rock the Golem, you'll come across everything that I've done. If you want to check out my Carbon Made page or any of the stuff that I do professionally, my name is David Dobrev. The last name is spelled just like the actress Nina Dobrev, Dobrev. And that's pretty much the two best ways to find me. If you want to get a hold of me, you can email me at rockthegolem@yahoo or rockthegolem@gmail. Just let me know who you are and what it is you'd like to work on. Or if you just want to say hi. I've never gotten an email before that says just, hey, how's it going? I'm a big fan. You do awesome work. Send me one. Why not? I also use Skype, and I also use Kik, which is a cell phone messenger app. Again, same username on both. Feel free to add me. If you do, just let me know who you are. If I just get a blind invite, I'm probably going to ignore it. Other than that, that should be it.
Sweet. Well, we want to thank you for coming on for this. I keep saying we. He didn't show up. I want to thank you for coming on tonight.
Thank you very much, John. I appreciate it.
We enjoy these Meet the Host segments. We get a chance to kind of get to the inner workings of all these different people we have on the network. And, we have a tendency, I think, as a society, to be like, oh, this thing on the internet, or I follow this thing on the internet. Well, there's people behind all those different things that we're following and watching and
absolutely.
And we want to bring those people out and kind of put them to the forefront and be like, hey, this is the person that you're following.
And I do appreciate the fact that you're willing to take that time, especially for me. This is really the first time anyone's done anything like this before. Like I've gotten, little shout outs here and there, but actually having someone sit down with me to like interview me and ask me questions. It's a first time experience for me. And I do really appreciate the fact that you were willing to take the time for it.
No, that's awesome. And like I said, that's what we're here for. We want to, for us, it's all about the community, especially for, people in the network. We want to make sure that, everybody's getting promoted and, get everybody's name out there and kind of bring all that to the fore and, let everybody know what's going on here. So, yeah, we're definitely excited to have you here.
Fantastic.
Sweet. I'm going to give our details now, if you don't mind. You can reach us at, or you can go to the website. It's www.legendsoftabletop.com. If you have any questions, comments, feedback that you want to give to us, that would be legendsoftabletop@gmail.com. A couple of the shows that I've been on, our show and some of the other shows I've been on recently, we talked about our giant BattleTech game that my brother and I are playing. So if you wanted to head over to our Instagram, it's legends_of_tabletop on there. You could check those pictures out. There's other random things on there, but those pictures are pretty cool. Of course, we're on all the social medias: Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, Twitter. I said Twitter again. I did that last time. You can get our stream on SoundCloud. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, Player FM, FeedBurner. Pretty much, like Dave said, just type our name into Google, and you're going to find us pretty much plastered all over everywhere.
Fantastic.
So, yep. We want to thank everybody for checking this out, and we'll catch you next time.
Mind if I give my traditional sign-off for you guys before we head out?
Nope. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you all very much for watching. If you liked what you've seen and heard, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And having said all that, we will see you guys on the other side. Take care.
Sweet. See you guys later.
Take care, guys.